Hello, my name is Dr. Jackalyn. I'm with DTP-Leadership Group. This is Hot Topic Bold Talk. We're going to talk about rebuilding the Democratic vision and lessons from 2024 election. We still have to keep looking, and I think we'll be looking for a long time to find all the answers that we can use to make some changes in the Democratic Party and how we're doing things. Now, I believe that mandates being used by Trump are going to backfire on him. And I'll tell you the reason for that, because there have been past presidents who've had that kind of thing happen to them. Now, there is an excellent article in the Washington Post by Jennifer Rubin. I think it gives tremendous information. You'll remember that I always give you my references so you can go look those up yourself, or I'll be happy to send you a copy if you need it, and I give you information about how to do that. I think this article is important because it says, take it from Bush 43, overreading a mandate might doom Trump's second term. And I think that we are already seeing something because the former Congressman Matt Gratz withdrawal from consideration for the Attorney General is certainly clear that President-elect Trump had overstretched and underestimated the spine of the Senate Republicans. Now, we'll see what happens with some of the rest, but it's not uncommon for a president who wins to get into the feeling of great because they won and then not realize that they cannot claim a broad mandate as a victory. Voters choose the presidents for many reasons, and I'll show you some of those and the reasons probably that people chose him. And there are many reasons. And so a mandate is really what I've read to be a political fiction. In Trump's case, many people chose him and wanted to disbelieve his grandiose promises. So that's the reason they chose him. But there are many others, which I'll give you. Now, this article, Reuben, is an excellent example of how not to spend much time debating about whether a president has a mandate or not. Since as we look at it, we're going to see that there are presidents that have overstepped, like George W. Bush. And what he was trying to do was he's trying to get support for his Social Security reform in 2004. And here's what happened to him. After his winning the re-election, Bush said his Social Security reform would be his primary domestic initiative. And so the White House launched a huge initiative to mobilize the public and to get broad support for this reform. Now, the Brookings Institute scholar William Gloston wrote, Bush made it a centerpiece of his 2005 State of the Union address. He also spent months traveling all over the country to see if he could get people to encourage him. Interestingly enough, he had a Congress in which the Senate had a huge majority of 55-45. Now, he had a smaller majority in the House, but his efforts on this reform stalled. Even with the popular vote and the Senate advantage, which is much greater than what Trump has, Bush could not muscle through his conservative ideals about his pet project. So he lost a lot of time. He was delayed because of his wanting to get this through. And he never got to immigration reform, which he was talking about, and wound up being consumed by Hurricane Katrina and the deterioration of the Iraqi war. So what can we gain from this example? The public has seldom supported a dramatic policy shift. We all know Trump keeps talking about a mass deportation. I don't think, and Rubin doesn't either, that Trump is aware how the voters cast their votes for him this year and the reasons they cast their votes for him. So I want to go through that and tell you. Foreign policy was 4% for people. Abortion was 14%. The economy was 32%. Immigration was 11%, and 34% was for the democracy. Now, we know that he's not going to touch anything with the democracy. But he constantly talks about this retaliation against his political enemies. And he keeps talking about cutting things. And so Rubin talks about in her articles some of the things that I think he's unaware of and some of the things that we need to be aware of, since they'll give us ways to set our agendas for countering anything that he does. Trump can't claim a mandate because he only has a plurality, not a majority. I don't know how he thinks the tariffs are not going to hit a consumer, because that's impossible. And Rubin says he does not, he certainly does not feel obligated to respond to the 34% that are concerned about our democracy. Even if many voters wanted a tough immigration stance, many Republicans, including Hispanics, insist he doesn't mean to round up hardworking people like them. I think they're going to be surprised in what happens or what he wants to do. Wanting a tough immigration policy is a far cry from consenting to drag off law-abiding people, separating families like he did before, and put employees out of business because they don't have their workers. So what should we conclude? America endorses only reasonable plans. They will not support extreme and inhumane deportation plans. So I don't think that I don't know if he's clear, but I don't think the American people will do that. Republicans do insist that they will target 3 to 4 million criminals that are, and this is an overstated number. Actually, the deportable criminals is roughly 600,000 to round up. And if you start looking at others like dreamers or revoking the temporary status of legal refugees, the reaction, I don't think, is going to be what he expects. It's going to be fierce. Even before the rollout of this specific plan, Rand Paul, the Republican from Kentucky, has slammed Trump's pledge to deploy the military to use this. So I think there's going to be a lot of resistance to it. The proposed deportation policy would not only devastate the labor force here in the United States, but it would create significant economic consequences. And I want to know what his billionaire backers are going to do. The construction section of our country alone employs 1.5 million undocumented workers. This is 13% of their workforce. The proposed deportation would push up home prices, major labor shortages, and one of the economists from The Guardian says that the shock of a mass deportation will cost trillions of dollars in economic growth, eliminating hundreds of thousands of jobs held by U.S. natives. Now, the farmers are another problem, because they're going to have a serious problem because they don't have their pickers anymore. He deports, like he's talking about. And I would really be surprised that red state House and Senate members who represent farmers are going to do anything except be alarmed if he touches them. There are multiple articles about how food prices will go up, and when farm labor comes, and shortages causes skyrocketing food prices. Now, Rubin says no matter what mandate Trump thinks he has, the plan scope his planned scope, the resulting visual images of what people are going to see, the public reactions, and the impact on the economy will determine whether he's successful or not, just like Bush was not as successful. Let's go back to his first term as well. His immigration policy was to separate children from their parents, which was devastating. And there are too many ways that I don't know, but I can't see Americans allowing that kind of thing to happen again. Part of the democratic process is, as voters, we find a way to talk with our Republican counterparts, or Democrats that voted for him, because I know some that did. I think they're going to have buyer's remorse. I saw it too many times after Trump was elected the first time. And I think it's going to be particularly business owners, because they're going to understand buyer's remorse. And I think they're going to see things happen that they're not pleased about. The promises that they thought were grandiose are things he's going to try to do, and I think they'll be unhappy about it. The Senate has already taken a stance on Trump's recommendations, as we're beginning to see. We all have to remember, he never got Mexico to pay for the wall that he wanted. So let's be very clear about what possibilities are. I found a really excellent answer, because I kept saying, why would people that want to support abortion ever vote for Trump? And there's an article in the New York Times called "Women Are Angry." And I think this essay gives us a good explanation. Positions of these voters are indeed incoherent if we think about it. Abortion or Trump. But there's always a need to reflect upon the new coalition that he has established. What are the kind of men and women who back him? A vote for abortion rights is not necessarily a vote for female autonomy or political power. Plenty of his voters are willing to check a box to keep women safe, but that doesn't mean these voters are enthusiastic about fettering female freedom or even putting a woman in the White House. Now, women across the United States were supposed to show up for Kamala Harris. They didn't. So I got a BBC News Washington, and it's called "Democrats had bet on women showing up in force." They didn't. I think this is what happened after I've read this article. A majority of the women did vote for Harris, however, not by historic margins, which she needed. You see in another podcast that I say 1.9 million people did not vote that are Democrats. And so it's obvious that something seriously happened. If early exit polls bear out, Harris's advantages among women overall was around 10 points, actually, because it fell 4 points short of Biden's in 2020. Democrats suffered a 10-point drop among Latino women, while falling to move the needle among non-college educated women at all, who again went for Trump 63-35. The shortage is not for a lack of Harris trying, because the reproductive rights were at the cornerstone of her pitch. But abortion remains a popular topic, because only 1 in 10 Americans think it should have been banned. But here's the reality. Women who strongly support abortion are voting for Democrats. Democrats were not able to convince other women that it was a pressing issue, because some of them are resolving it in the states. The issue was most important to them was the economy, and that's what took us toward Trump. My next question was, what Democrats need to do to gain support from women? And there is an article in the Atlantic, which is "What Can Women Do Now?" It gives some excellent examples of how Trump won the men. But I also think this article says, I want you to remember previous podcasts that I've provided, because it supports what I've provided before, that the misinformation by Republicans and Musk to present false statements about Kamala Harris in ads was a major impact on her campaign. Now, we know that Trump's misogynistic approach was amplified in his campaign, and he attracted many men, particularly young men. So as I looked at the article, I found some things that I thought we all need to know. Representative Shirley Chisholm, the first Black woman to run for president, wrote in 1970 that women in America are much more brainwashed and content with their roles as second-class citizens than Black people ever were. This remains true today. No matter the number of marches women hold or the memes that they post online about sisterhood, many women are unswayed. 53% of the white women and a growing percentage of Latinos voted for Trump. Women can enforce patriarchal system just as well as men. And the traditional wives on the internet we see demonstrated is what is happening. Now, I appreciate some new tactics that they suggested. They say in this article, we cannot retreat since our lives and future depend on us taking action. Women are effective when we engage in respectful communication with each other. So I know that I'm going to be talking and asking some of my friends the reasons they voted for him and how can we have conversations about it. Kamala Harris was really clear, though, in her concession speech. We're going to fight in the polls, in the courts, and in the public square. She said, we will wage things quietly as well, and that means conversation. Now, one of the suggestions that about talking with men that supported Trump is we can first start by thanking the men that supported Harris, the ones that truly believe and respect that women can lead. And I think it's sad there are millions of men that do not feel that way. So it's important for us to encourage those that do believe in women's abilities to lead. And so I'm certainly going to talk to all of my male friends that supported Harris and thank them. I think they can also be a help with us. They can go with us to talk to people because I think they talk about it. But another thing that friends of mine have said, they're going to start talking to their younger men and boys. Is a challenging time. So we cannot control what they hear on the internet, but we can find ways to have conversations with them and counter programming what they have gotten on the internet. Now, it's also time for each of us as women to talk with our friends and our cousins, our fathers, our colleagues who voted for him. We need to discuss what is happening to women's lives and what our values are that make us so valuable to our country. We need to ask the help of men who voted for Harris. This article's significant statements about fewer Black men than Latino men drifted toward Trump. I was a member of a Black church for many, many years. And the article describes what I saw. And it's true, particularly now, and that's the reason many Black men stayed with Harris. The African-American women held discussions prior to the election. They looked at what was going online, and they had private conversations in their churches with the men that they needed to talk to. They had discussions about female leadership, and they gave examples of Black women who are great leaders. So African Americans know how to change and mold minds that have been affected by the internet, and their conversations made a difference. Remember something that Harris said, we all have power. so we all can do the same thing that many African American women did before the election. And I think this article ends with something that's important. Despite what many say, the modern woman doesn't need a man, but women's lives can certainly be improved by men not hating them. And I think that's what we're going to have to start looking at. How do we improve our relationship with them, and what do we do? There's also a short article in Time magazine about Democrats need a new immigration playbook, and it has some excellent examples. Here's what they say. First, Democrats need to realize that immigration voting patterns are much more complex than what we realize. The reality is that many immigrants are socially conservatives. Some may have found it hard to drastically see structural changes. So we forget they left their homes, their jobs, their friends to seek out something better in America. This article presents this idea, and I think they're right on. For many immigrants, voting for Donald Trump and the Republican Party represented a focus on issues like inflation, the economy, and education. Priorities that many immigrant voters saw the Republican Party and Trump as a safer choice. So we must accept that many immigrants are more conservative than we thought. In Allentown, Pennsylvania, which has one of the largest Syrian communities in the U.S. and an Hispanic population of 53.3%, the Democratic margin dropped by 18% from 2016 to 2024. Similar patterns appeared in Lawrence, Maine, 80% Latino, where Democratic support fell by double digits compared to 2020. And in Starr County, Texas, 97% Hispanic, Republicans won for the first time since 1896. That has got to tell us something. Even though Trump had very negative immigration comments, most of the immigrants, their answers were that they are working class people. They are unhappy with the economy, and it comes from people from Mexico or Honduras or Guatemala. They're Christian, they're Muslim, and they're Hindu. And they felt the Republican message of self-reliance, economic opportunity, and traditional values aligned more with what they saw for their future. Now, this is something I think is disturbing, but it's real. Take the border issue, for example. The conventional wisdom of the immigrants is, particularly Latino ones, would be that Trump's border is just bluster. But on October, New York Senate College poll found that 67% of U.S. born and 51% foreign born Latino responders didn't feel that Trump's anti-immigrant rhetoric was directed at them. Some immigrants also actively distance themselves from new immigrants because they're afraid that it may bring, it may bring anti-immigrant sentiment. Now, many are on work visas who work high-paying jobs. They pay taxes and they own their homes, yet still lack a pathway to citizenship. It is very clear that the U.S. immigration system is unfair. Those that are stuck in years of long asylum cases live each day not knowing what is going to happen to them next. Some see the border crossings as cutting in line. And sadly, immigrants have had the experience with this broken system, and others that they love have had great difficulties in coming to the United States. So they made decisions about what was occurring based on these experiences. And I will speak more about how to win the Latinos, because there is a Latino Democrat that won his Senate seat, yet the state he comes from voted for Trump. The coming years will test America's ability to maintain decency and empathy and growing divisions. Trump and the Republican Party will test us. Can we maintain and develop respect to each other through conversations rather than investing in apathy, anger, and a line violence to be the norm? Our country has been in a place many times where it's been pushed to the brink, and yet we have survived. In the New York Times article by Reston, what this means for America in Trump's election, she says the following: we are a nation that has always emerged from a crucible with its ideal intact and often toughened and sharpened. For now, America has made its choice, decisively if narrowly. We know who will lead us in this closing chapter of the first 250 years in the nation. But if history has taught anything, it is the next chapter is where the story really begins. So let me conclude by saying the 2024 election has provided a stark reality for us as Democrats, highlighting areas where our assumptions failed and we need new approaches. Moving forward, we must embrace new ideas and strategies to engage with diverse voting groups. We need to address the economic concerns and counter the spread of misinformation. The pathway to rebuilding the Democratic Party's vision requires courage, adaptability, and meaningful conversations across divides. While the challenges ahead may seem insurmountable, history shows that American strength lies in its ability to preserve and emerge stronger. So let us all commit beginning a new story for the Democratic Party and how we will contribute to America. Thank you.